Job, the Unbreakable Soul. Part 2. Job sat among the ashes, weakened and trembling. The air around him felt heavy with sorrow and strain. His body bore the wounds of affliction. His spirit carried the weight of unanswered questions. The once strong man of the East now sat in silence. His skin broken, his strength fading, his future uncertain. The wind moved slowly across the ground, lifting dust into the fading light. Nothing looked the same. The fields that once flourished were empty. The houses that once echoed with laughter were still. The sound of sighs and distant wind had replaced the voice of celebration. Yet Job did not curse God. He did not raise his fist toward heaven. He did not demand explanations. Instead, he sat and endured. Pain has a way of stripping away everything unnecessary. Titles disappear. Wealth loses meaning. Strength fades. All that remains is the soul before its maker. And in that moment, Job's faith was no longer the faith of prosperity. It was the faith of endurance. Yet as the days passed, the silence of heaven grew heavier. The questions that once hovered at the edges of his mind now pressed against his heart. Why? Why this suffering? Why this silence? Why this loss? Job had defended his integrity. He had searched his heart. He had examined his ways. But he could not find the crime that justified the sentence. His pain was not only physical, it was spiritual. He felt abandoned, hidden from the face of the one he had always trusted. Oh, that I knew where I might find him, that I might come even to his seat. His voice trembled, not with rebellion, but with longing. His friends had spoken many times, urging, correcting, accusing, but their words brought no peace. Job longed for God to answer, to reveal why such sorrow had filled his days. Silence hung between them until a voice rose from the edge of their gathering. It was Elihu, the son of Barachel, younger than the rest, yet his presence carried clarity and strength. His eyes reflected compassion, and his voice trembled with earnest reverence as he stepped closer. He reminded them all that age alone does not give wisdom. He said with conviction, quoting God's inspired word from the depths of his heart. Carefully choosing his words, he said,
I am young in years, and you are very old. Therefore, I was afraid and dared not declare my opinion to you. I said, age should speak, and multitude of years should teach wisdom. But there is a spirit in man, and the breath of the Almighty gives him understanding. Great men are not always wise, nor do the aged always understand justice.
He spoke of the greatness of God, the one who watches the paths that all men take, who rescues the humble, who teaches through suffering, who desires to draw the hearts of men closer to himself. Elihu explained that pain was not always punishment, but sometimes the whisper of God calling men back to himself. He described the mercy of the Almighty, who often redeems a man's life from the pit. Job listened, his eyes filled with tears, not out of despair, but of the first faint light penetrating his anguish. Elihu's words were not accusations. They were revelations, pointing beyond earthly logic to divine purpose. As Elihu spoke, the sky shifted. The wind stirred the dust around their feet. The light dimmed unnapped, eerily as though creation itself anticipated something far greater than human speech. Elihu's voice faded, and all eyes turned to the horizon where clouds began to gather in thick, swirling layers. A whirlwind descended, not chaotic, but majestic. Wind wrapped around light, and light wrapped around thunder. Job trembled, not in fear, but in awe. The Almighty had come. Then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind, his voice a sound of authority beyond understanding. He asked, "Who is this who darkens counsel by words without knowledge?" His voice rolled like thunder, yet carried a clarity that pierced the heart. "Now prepare yourself like a man. I will question you, and you shall answer me." The storm illuminated the sky as God spoke of creation's mysteries. "Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth?" He spoke of the boundaries of the sea, the storehouses of snow, the paths of light, and the depths of the oceans. He asked Job whether he commanded the morning or caused the dawn to know its place. Job bowed low as the voice of the Almighty continued. God described some of the astounding marvels of creation. His words revealed the depth and breadth of his wisdom, a wisdom beyond human judgment. Will you hunt the prey for the lion, or fill the appetite of the young lions? When they couch in their dens and conceal themselves, absolutely still and quiet, but perfectly alert, lying in wait for their prey. Did you teach the mountain goats how to walk and run, and leap safely off the dangerous ledge of the rocks? Do you know the time when they give birth? Can you count how long they carry their unborn babies in their bellies? At the appointed time, they bow themselves down and bear their young. They end their labor pains. Did you give wings and feathers to the ostrich, which leaves her eggs in the earth and warms them in dust, forgetting that the foot may crush them, or that the wild beast may break them, which could not be bothered that her labor might be in vain? she is hardened against her young ones, as though they were not hers. Her labor is in vain without fear. Why? How could she be so uncaring about her young at a stage when they were so fragile and vulnerable? It's because God hath deprived her of wisdom. Neither hath he imparted to her understanding. Yet when she lifts herself high to run, she can put both the horse and his rider to shame. Are you the one who gave the horse its great strength? Have you clothed his neck with a quivering mane? The glory of his snorting is awesome. Have you made him to leap as a locust? The glory of his snorting is awesome. In battles in the field, on the mountain or in the valley, he never drags his feet, but goes out with zeal to meet the armed men. He mocks at fear and is not dismayed. Neither does he turn back from the flashing sword, spear, or javelin. He covers the ground with fierceness and rage. Neither stands still at the sound of the trumpet. Is it by your wisdom that the hawk soars and stretches her wings toward the south? Is it at your command that the eagle mounts up and makes her nest on high? She dwells and abides on the rock, upon the crag of the rock, and the strong place. From there she spies out the prey. Her eyes see it afar off. For the first time since his suffering began, Job saw himself clearly before God, a man finite in understanding, yet loved by the one who governs all creation. Then the Lord spoke again. Shall the one who contends with the Almighty correct him? Job's lips trembled. He placed his hand over his mouth. He had spoken of things too deep for him, mysteries too great to understand. Yet the Lord was not finished. Out of the whirlwind, he challenged Job with the images of Behemoth and Leviathan, mighty creatures that no man could tame. Through them, he showed that his power surpasses all strength, and his sovereignty extends beyond human boundaries. Job understood. If God rules over forces so vast, he surely rules over every detail of human life. As the whirlwind softened, Job lifted his eyes, tears streaming down his face. He confessed with humility, I know that you can do everything, and that no purpose of yours can be withheld from you. He said, I have heard of you by the hearing of the ear, but now my eye sees you. Job was transformed, not by answers, but by a revelation of God himself. His suffering had not destroyed him as the adversary intended. It had deepened him, anchoring his soul in the greatness of the Almighty. Then the storm faded. The wind ceased. A peaceful silence settled across the land. Job's wife watched as her husband rose slowly, strength returning to his face. She touched his arm gently, relief flooding her features. The sorrow that had etched her eyes began to lift, replaced with a renewed tenderness and hope. Job's friends stepped forward, humbled. The Lord required them to bring offerings and for Job to pray for them. They obeyed, and Job, with compassion, prayed earnestly. His prayers rose like incense, and God accepted them. Then came the turning point, the moment heaven had ordained. The scriptures recorded simply, "And the Lord restored Job's losses when he prayed for his friends." In an instant, the tide shifted. Blessing returned like a flood after drought. His land that had become dry and barren suddenly began to produce lush green grass to feed his sheep, cattle, camels, and donkeys. These animals began to reproduce amazingly. Job's health was restored, and his youth was renewed. His skin regained its health and glow. His body regained its strength, and his eyes shone with life again. His household expanded with double the wealth he once possessed. Flocks multiplied across his fields. Servants moved through his home with renewed purpose and joy. God blessed Job's latter days more than his beginning. He received sons and daughters again. Children born into joy, not sorrow. His daughters were renowned for their beauty, and Job gave them an inheritance alongside their brothers. Job and his wife embraced this new season with gratitude, their hearts free from the shadows of former grief. The home that once echoed with lament now overflowed with laughter, music, and the sound of new life. Stone courtyards held the warmth of family gatherings. Ancient carpets and carved wooden tables filled spacious rooms with joy and celebration. Oil lamps glowed late into the evening as Job shared wisdom with a new generation, speaking of the God who restores and the Redeemer who lives. Job lived 140 years, seeing his children and grandchildren to 4 generations. Surrounded by family, he passed from this world full of days. A life shaped by trial, transformed by revelation, and crowned with the goodness of God. And the testimony of his journey endures not as a tale of suffering, but as a testament to divine faithfulness. A reminder that even when heaven seems silent, God is at work in ways beyond our understanding. Job's story teaches us that pain is never the final chapter. The God who sees the end from the beginning can take our ashes and breathe life into it again. Even in seasons of silence, He is working, restoring, and shaping us into people who know Him more deeply. Like Job, may we hold fast to the truth that our Redeemer lives, and that no purpose of His for our lives can be stopped if we would hold fast to our faith in Him. Subscribe to Bible Faith Express for more powerful Bible stories, faith-building lessons, and inspiration from God's Word. Hit the bell so you don't miss the next episode.